How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the corner. I'm the DM as always, and today I want to talk about Diablo 4, or really Diablo in general. I was watching this video by Jazarus, and it got me thinking about the skill tree here in Diablo 4 versus like Diablo 3, for example. And I'm going to try and make this quick and relatively short because uh, what I have to say kind of applies across all of the classes for both Diablo 4. And it's the lack of customizability in Diablo 4 skill trees, or more accurately, skill twigs. Um, and I want to just use a few quick examples and then just kind of, call it that. So I'm going to break down why it sucks and why I think it's just categorically worse in Diablo 4 versus Diablo 3. So in Diablo 3 versus Diablo 4, we're going to start off very basic and we're just going to do 5 points into that and then we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so from what I understand, you can only have one of these allocated at any given time after this main upgrade, right? And down here, you have your 3 ultimates, of which you can only ever have one slotted, right? And we'll get to all of that here in just a moment. But if we start with Bash, okay, so Bash over here, it deals 46% weapon damage, and after bashing 4 times, your next will clobber and stun for 1.5 seconds. So you have to hit 5 times with the one-handed weapon or 3 times with the two-handed weapon in order to get that 1.5 second stun. You you contrast this with just Bash from Diablo 3, which not only deals significantly more weapon damage, meaning the skill is significantly more useful. You can take this skill right here, Frostbite, at level 6, which makes it so that once every 5 seconds, when you hit an enemy, you freeze them for 1.5 seconds. Now, when you freeze them, you are effectively making it so they can't do anything. They have increased chance to get critically struck, and when you kill them, they explode, meaning you don't have to deal with any on-death effects, right? Whereas Bash over here, you have to hit them at least 3 times in order to stun them for 1.5 seconds, which means with a two-handed weapon, you need to have really, really fast attack speed in order to get that 1.5 second stun reliably, right? And not just have it be like kind of a side content thing. Additionally, if we go over to here, right, you can't take this unless you're using a two-handed weapon. And then that makes it so that your next, either one of these skills or one of these skills will overpower, which means they have it's like a bit of extra damage, and then the fortify also gives them a bit of extra damage right here, and it's tiny amounts of extra damage kind of sprinkled throughout. And again, you can only use this if you're actually using a two-handed weapon. If you're not using a two-handed weapon, this does nothing for you. So you basically have to take this. And from what I can see, Fury is really not a problem generator, right? Whereas over here with Bash, for example, you have this Frostbite one right here. You have Onslaught, which just gives enemies hit by this a 10% increased chance to be critically hit. You have Punish, which gives you up to a 12% damage increase, just flat across the board. All of your damage is increased by up to 12%, right? You have this, which no one actually uses this for Fury generation. I'll get to that in a second. Everyone uses it to turn it into fire because that makes it scale off fire damage, and that is massive when you think about some of the things you can do with that. And then you also have Pulverize, which makes it so that it sends out a shockwave, dealing 100% weapon damage as fire damage to enemies in a 26-yard line behind the target. So this can give you either some AoE damage, it can give you some extra fire damage, it can increase your overall damage, it can increase your the chance for something to be critically hit, and it can give you some CC, right? Compared to the Bash in Diablo 4, which is just you deal a small amount of damage, and then if you're using a two-handed weapon, your next core or weapon mastery skill will do slightly more damage, right? And that's it. Now, continuing on, I want to go down to Whirlwind because Whirlwind is another kind of staple of barbarian builds, right? So over here in Diablo 4, you spin rapidly, dealing up to 73% weapon damage. We'll get to it. Really, you don't care about that. You would just put 1 point in this. I'll get to that in a second. But you do that to surrounding enemies, right? And then you can come up here and get a little bit of extra fury generation. Then you can either go over to here, which after channeling for 2 seconds, your next weapon mastery skill used immediately after deals like a little bit of extra damage. Or you can deal more bleeding. This is what I was saying I was going to get into. Or you can have it deal 120% bleeding. Weapon damage is bleeding over 5 seconds, right? And that's only if you're using a slashing weapon, right? And the reason why I said you would only ever put 1 point into this is because even at max rank, it's still not even doing as much damage as this. Now, you compare that to the Whirlwind from Diablo 3, where not only does it deal significantly more damage, you move at full speed while using it, and then you have one of a few different options, and we'll get to adjusting this in a second. You can have it generate dust devils, which are little tiny tornadoes that kind of out from you that deal even more damage than this, and it does it instantly instead of over 5 seconds. You can have it pull enemies in. Okay, you can have critical hits restore max percentage max life. You can have it gain 1 fury for every enemy struck. We'll get to that more in a second. Or you can have it deal fire damage and a little bit more damage than base. Now, up here, wind shear, you might say, oh, well, this just looks like a worse version of enhanced whirlwind, and that's where you're just completely wrong. And the reason why you would be wrong here, because by base it does seem like it's just categorically worse. But the reason why it's wrong is because there's a unique item. I don't remember what slot it goes into, but there's a unique item that I'm pretty sure can make it so that your Whirlwind is treated as having every single one of these runes all at once. Okay, so that means it will generate these dust devils while pulling enemies in, while restoring your maximum life, while gaining fury, while dealing 400% fire damage, because you can still allocate this and get this bonus as and turn your whirlwind into specifically fire damage, because you can see there's one for lightning and one for cold. If you don't have one of these allocated, these extra ones don't do anything because they clash with each other, so the game just doesn't use any of them. But if you have like volcanic eruption slotted, and that means that your whirlwind will scale off fire damage, which, as I mentioned before, is really nice because if you're using bash, for example, to gain that 12% damage boost, right, or to gain the fire to turn it into fire damage, well, now you're scaling both bash and whirlwind off of the same stat. Okay. But since you can have all of those dust devils that scatter out from you, whenever they hit an enemy, wind shear triggers, which gives you 1 fury, and they hit every like I think half second. So in 1 second, if it hits an enemy twice, you're getting 2 fury immediately, which is already more than this because this is capped by how many times the whirlwind itself triggers. This also costs 15 more fury, but that's I don't really care about that, right? So just the dust devils from it deals more damage than the furious whirlwind, and it doesn't have the caveat of requiring you to use a slashing weapon. If you're not using a slashing weapon, you have to take this with whirlwind because otherwise this does just nothing at all. Whereas in Diablo 3, you just get it regardless of the weapon type that you're using. And the last one, at least for the Berserker, that I want to kind of touch on is Wrath of the Berserker. And the reason why is because Wrath of the Berserker is another really good one to kind of use as an example. So right here, Wrath of the Berserker, you explode, you knock enemies back, you gain Berserking, which is a like 50% damage increase, and you gain Unstoppable for 5 seconds. And then for 10 seconds, dealing direct damage with a basic skill, okay, only a basic skill, you gain Berserking for 5 seconds, right? So you can have a maximum uptime of about 15 seconds for Berserking, right? And that's if you're diligent about using your basic skills after this is activated. And then when you activate it at rank 5, it pulls people in, right? Now, if you continue to look down here, you'll see that it also gives up to another 100%, so 125% with Berserking. and an extra 20% movement speed and some fury generation. That doesn't really matter. Um, what is really important to note though is that over here, Wrath of the Berserker in Diablo 3, it just happens for 20 seconds. For 20 seconds, you get all of these. You get 10% increased crit chance, you get 25% increased attack speed, which yes, it does scale your whirlwind. You get some dodge chance, which really doesn't matter, and you get 20% movement speed, okay? But more importantly, down here, there's a set, I believe, that will give you like all of these, right? Hang on. Yeah, so the Immortal King's Call, okay? So it makes that, so Call the Ancients lasts until they die, that doesn't really matter. The 4-piece then reduces the cooldown of Wrath of the Berserker by 3 seconds for every 10 fury spent with an attack. And if you're using Whirlwind, this is enormous, right? This basically makes it so that with maximum CDR, you can have Wrath of the Berserker up all of the time. And then down here, it makes it so that while both Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients, which you would be using with this, is active, you deal 4,000% increased damage. Okay. So it gives you an enormous amount of damage increase, right? And makes it so that you can have Wrath of the Berserker up indefinitely. Okay. Now, that's not it, however, because with all of that, you can have one of these attached to it, right? You can reduce all damage by 50%, which is pretty fucking huge. You can increase all damage by 50%. Okay. You can have it so that your critical hits cause an eruption of blood to deal more AoE damage. And then you can also have it so that when you activate it, you deal weapon damage to everyone around you. Really, no one uses this. Most people either use one of these three, right? You can also gain life from Fury Spin. So compare this to Wrath of the Berserker, which, if you look at D4 Berserking, right, gives you 25% movement speed, or 20% damage and 30% movement speed, right? Even with the 100% extra damage here, right, which would make it 125%, you're still not gaining as much as you are from this Wrath of the Berserker, right? Because you're gaining crit chance, you're gaining attack speed, which again scales your whirlwind, which is the like primary goaded like go-to ability of the Berserker in Diablo 3. You can just reduce all damage by 50%, which you just can't do here, right? So it just makes you insanely more tanky, right? And that's not even like, here's the thing, right? This is in addition to your resistances and armor and whatnot in Diablo 3, right? Which further reduce damage. Whereas this Wrath of Berserking, it gives you like a minor damage increase, and only with 5 points do you get the ability to pull things in, right? Whereas in Diablo 3, you can use Whirlwind and Hurricane at level 29 to get the same effect. So right here, Wrath of the Wasteless, or Wrath of the Wastes, right? The 4-piece, or no, sorry, the 6-piece makes us that Whirlwind gains Dust Devil Rune, and all Whirlwind runes, and Whirlwind and Rin damage is increased by 10,000%, right, with 6 pieces. Now you might be saying, oh, well, how would you get this 6-piece and this 6-piece? Well, that's with the Herodric Cube, which allows you to socket a weapon, armor, and jewels piece and get those bonuses. You can do this with sets, you can do this with uniques, it doesn't matter. If you do it with sets, you get it, you are treated as having that item for the set bonus, right? So, because of how these function, right, you can have the weapon, you can have the chest armor, and then you can have from over here. So right here, you remove 2, weapon and another one, right? And then to get this, you only need 4 more pieces. And with this, you need 6 pieces, but it is possible to get 6 pieces here and 4 pieces here, and get both of those set bonuses, right? And then there was also the leak mechanics and everything, but that's neither here nor there. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And I want to use one more example of the lack of customizability before I end this video. And so this is probably the best example, Meteor. Okay, so it deals 120% damage and like a little bit of burning damage. Okay, um, and then if you come here and then go here, if it's 3 or more, you cause 1 additional meteor to fall. This one is useless because it's like it immobilizes whatever. Realistically, you want things to just die. You don't want them to survive. And if they're surviving, you you're you're doing pretty bad. And this one just causes it to fall a little bit faster, right? It doesn't even remove half of the fall time. Whereas over here, not only does it do significantly more damage on both the initial hit and the burning ground, the very first one, you can just remove the delay, and so the meteor comes down immediately. Um, you can expend all of your arcane power to increase it by 20% per each arcane power spent, right? So at the base 100, that's a 200% increase. You're doubling the damage of it, and you can get even more. I've seen builds with over 500 arcane power, right? You can convert it to cold damage. You can have it turn into 7 smaller damage, which just for those wondering is almost 2,000 damage, right? Or you can greatly increase the size, get pretty close to the same amount, and then also increase the fire damage that deals on the ground. Sorry, had a call. Yeah, so it not only just does more damage initially, there's just significantly more ways to customize your meteor. Um, and it's just like this is true for literally every skill in Diablo 3. You have 2 ways to customize it, and the vast majority of them are really really bland and really bad. So that's it for this video. Quick, short, simple. Thank you for watching. I've been Demon as always. Hit the like button and hit subscribe if you liked the video. If you didn't, hit dislike, leave a comment, let me know why, and I will see you all next time.